Millennial bosses are just a little bit different compared to old bosses. Jim Whitten joining us on 710 KURV. He's analyst of communication skills. So we expect more, bean bags and video games and 2-hour, 3-hour lunches. It's all good, right? We're going to be building bears here on campus pretty soon.
Well, wouldn't that be nice? Good morning, guys. Good to be with you.
Good morning, brother.
Well, you know that millennials value immediate feedback. So let's think about the things that we know about them. They like that immediate feedback. They like autonomy, a feeling of independence when they're trying to do their tasks, and they want a purpose bigger than themselves. Nothing wrong with that at all. But now they're going to be bosses. They're going to be supervisors. And so that's kind of where we're thinking now, okay, well, what do we do with that? Well, I think you have to remember that millennial bosses, and by the way, they don't like being called millennials like baby boomers. You know, baby boomers took that mantra and they like it. Millennials are not crazy about that. So
and again, let's visit that first, Jim. Why is that? Why do they not like that moniker?
Because of the general stereotypes that have been associated with it.
Is it earned, or is it unfair?
Oh, I'm not going to say it's unfair or unearned. But, you know, the point is, moving forward, if they're your boss, you're probably not going to want to call them something they don't like to be called.
That's true.
So, I'm not going to argue with you in some ways. But, you know, here's the thing about millennial bosses or supervisors. They're likely to be, of course, what I call old school, meaning they're going to be wise beyond their years. They're not going to be your average millennial. I'm going to suspect they're going to have some boomer characteristics. In other words, they're going to have imprinted in their own life some of those things that came from their parents' generation. So I wouldn't lump in the bosses, you know, the cream of the crop that has risen to supervisory positions. I wouldn't lump them in with just your average millennial, which is the group that gets the stereotypes, the negative stereotypes. So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two, they bring an enthusiasm for the technology. And then the boomer, let's say they're boomer subordinates, are going to bring the experience and the wisdom. So when you think about that, we need wisdom in the workplace today to ward off commoditization. In other words, people are being replaced by algorithms in every industry. Well, wisdom and personalized connection, which is what the boomers are skilled at, you team this with the technology and the enthusiasm for the younger supervisors, and I think you can build a team that brings the best of both worlds together.
Yes, sir. I'm liking what I hear. You got a purpose-driven gig now. You have fun at work. Maybe get some more time off. Work away from the office. Better technology. Well, that's it. All right, Zach. Tell Zach he's the new program director for KURV. Joining us on 710 KURV, the morning news. Jim Whitten.
Yeah, Tim Sullivan here. I think you make a good point because there are just things that one has to do if you're going to be a boss, whether you're a millennial, baby boomer, or whatever. I mean, there is a sort of type of work and an attitude that goes along with being a boss, no matter what category you might want to be stereotyped in.
Yeah, and, you know, there's mentoring, and in my book, The Old School Advantage, I write quite a bit about mentoring and choosing the right mentor. You know, they're willing to do that. I mean, one of the characteristics that we don't think about much is that millennials thrive in environments where they're coached, and they work well with experienced mentors. Now, I would suggest there's a chance for reverse mentoring. I mean, my 4 kids, who are all millennials,
Yep.
Yeah, they reverse mentor me all the time. Mm-hmm. So, let's not discount that. But, we go all over the country teaching organizations about generational bridging concepts. Mm-hmm. And let me just give you a couple of examples. One is what we call LAVA, and it's an acronym, and I won't go into what it means at this point, but it's basically a systematic way to build immediate rapport with another individual, whether it's a customer or somebody you meet at a dinner party or your coworker. And you can do that immediately just by talking about where they're from or what their hobbies are or who their family is, things of that nature. You'd be surprised at how many people sit in the cubicles together and they never find out that simple information about each other. But once they do, it connects them on a personal level, and some really incredible things happen.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
One can't stop learning. and you're always learning from somebody else. One other question I was going to ask you, Jim, was that, there is this stereotype of millennials, and I disagree with it. I just in general don't like stereotypes or generalizations, but one stereotype is that millennials kind of like to be left alone, and if they're going to be bosses, well, how well is that going to work?
Well, and like I say, I think that stereotype and stereotypes by nature are general, and they apply to a class of people or individuals. I believe you're likely not to see as many of the millennial generation characteristics come out in a person who's put in charge of others that are in an older generation. So I'm not saying that won't be present, but I think it'll be minimized. And so if I'm a boomer going to work for a new boss that is a millennial, I really need to understand that they're going to be probably a lot more like me than I realize, at least for a generation. Now, that may change when Generation Z comes along, but, we'll have an interview when that happens.
Z?
Yeah. Man, we didn't even talk about Generation X. We just jumped from baby boomers
we
to
just
millennials.
ran over to Z. Now we're talking about Z. Yeah, and they're lifesavers, too, boy, on the technology side. Zach called him the other day. Hey, I can't get my computer to work. Help me out here. Okay, here's the on switch. Boom, there it is. Everything. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Jim. Jim Whitten, analyst on communication skills. Takes a look at workplace culture all the time. Jim Whitten joining us on 710 KURV. Oh, and by the way, Jim's book is The Old School Advantage, Timeless Tools for Every Generation.